I'm not going to lie. One of the reasons I have this podcast is so that I have an excuse to catch up with people that I've worked with in the past. Welcome to the Backstage Creative. My name is Krista Copper. Today is my conversation with Sara Sharos. We worked together at Creed Repertory Theater in 2018. Creed Repertory Theater, I mean, just about everyone I know that I've interviewed on the show can somehow be traced back to Creed, either because we worked together there or because I met someone there who connected me to another theater that I eventually worked at. So for me, it was a kind of a turning point in my career. I met so many great people there. Just the other day, I was thinking about, because of this conversation, just thinking back on Creed and some of the good moments that I had. One of them that stuck out to me was with Sara. It was Sara and myself and several other people. It was towards the end of the season. And we got together and had a brunch out on the front porch of one of the houses that cast and crew were living in. It was a beautiful late summer's day. The season was winding down. You know, there wasn't as much stress in the air because all the shows had either closed by that point or were up and running. The mountains were beautiful. And it was just, one of those moments where you have good food and good friends, good conversation, beautiful scenery, amazing weather. It was just such a peaceful moment. And I was thinking back on that and just being so appreciative of the memories that I have from working in theater and just those moments that I can look back on and am so grateful that they happened. If you're like me and I'm just beyond ready for the pandemic to be over, beyond ready to get back to work, beyond ready to be back in a theater, working long hours, sitting in a tech week rehearsal, receiving rehearsal schedule emails. I just encourage you to, if you haven't already, just take time to think back about the good that has come out of a career in the theater field. Think back about the relationships that you've been able to have and how you've grown as a person. Yeah, I've been spending a lot of time in reflection because I don't really have much else to do. So it's been beneficial for me, and it's given me something to smile about and something positive to think about in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of a lot of political turmoil in the United States at this time. So yeah, I guess I can thank Sara for kind of putting me in just a little different headspace lately. Sara's great. You're really going to enjoy this conversation. So let's get to it. Here's my conversation with Sara Sharos. Just focus on what's going good. And so today I was thinking like, okay, I'm healthy. I have a good place to live. I have a job. Like sometimes you just have to like force yourself to think about the good things.
Oh, I know. I totally understand. I get frustrated with my job. We've had a lot of turnover recently, and so it's left a lot of weight on me. But I saw one of my, actually, it was Alex Posen
Mm-hmm.
from Creed. I saw him post on, it was like, his 40th job application. And on the section where it's like, why do you want this job? He was like, I just put, I'm hungry finally. Yeah, so it's very sad, but I'm like, I need to shut my mouth and just go to work and just be happy.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally hear you on that.
I'm also not I really hate January. Like whatever the year is, I just hate January. And so now it's January again in a pandemic. And so
Girl, I hear January is not my month. January and September. September is weird because it's my birth month, but I've also had a lot of, this is sad, I've had a lot of people die in September. So I totally get that for sure. Absolutely.
yeah. So have you been doing, I was just looking on your Instagram. Have you been doing shows or have you done a show lately?
I have one now. So that's what I was saying. I was doing meetings. So I have worked with the children's theater before in town. It's called Trike, and I've built puppets for them in the past. And they hired me to do puppets again, or props really. There's one puppet in this show, but I actually built puppets for it a year ago in March. The play is called Choose Love. It's inspired by, I believe it's a mom who lost her son in the Sandy Hook shooting, and so her discovery, her process with grief, she figured out she has to choose love, kind of like what you were saying, like she has to choose love. So she created this movement called Choose Love, and then a book was written about It was like a book and a play at the same time. It's kind of hard to explain. But we did the first iteration of the play with all of the characters being puppets. And now we're doing it. A book has been written and illustrated now. And then now we're doing it virtually, of course. But all the characters are real humans. One character is like a narrator who, like, puts on a hat, they become a snake, puts on a hat, becomes a bear, or whatever it is. And then it's, like I said, it's all virtual this time. The filming is this Saturday. So it's been a little bit of a struggle because I've been working. I still work 40 hours a week at my job, and then I've been propping on top of it. And then it's like getting back into the swing of, because even I haven't built props in longer than the pandemic because I was on tour. So it was a different ball game. So it's just been, a minute of me being like, oh, you have to do all these things again. And it's definitely been very fun. And I'm extremely grateful to, like, I cried painting that toy box because I was like, oh, I get to do this again. But at the same time, it's, had a little bit of an adjustment, like getting back into the swing of things of it. So
Yeah, I'm so worried about what what my first show back will feel like.
yeah.
Because I think it's gonna feel really weird and really awkward.
I totally get that for sure. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm feeling. So, like I said, I'm very grateful. I'm very excited. But then working on top of doing it all has just been a little crazy. Plus, I have a sweet 5-month-old puppy that I either have to like drop off to daycare, go pick her up from daycare, or like usually when I work, I usually would come home and let her out on my lunch break. But if I have a meeting, I can't do that. So it's like I said, it's been lots of things going on, but all good things. So, and I'm excited because with the virtual show, everyone will get to see it. It's one of those, like, I guess you got to think of the pluses. I can share it with more people this time than I have in the past because it's not live. It's a push pull, definitely.
Mhm. So is it kind of like a one and done filming thing? Are they doing it several times? How's that working?
From my understanding, they're filming it once. I'm not sure if they're gonna try and stream it like once or twice, but I think it's only the one and done filming. And then another thing that Trike does is they send boxes to kids. So it's like a box with like the book, and we travel through a desert and an ocean. So like in the real version, when we could have a live audience, they had like sandpaper they passed around to the kids to like get the feeling of sand, and they had a little spray bottle for water. So I know that they do these boxes that can be passed to, that they send to the kids so that there's some kind of like real life thing they can touch and connect with the show.
Love that.
And the whole show is about this little boy who gets so angry because his little sister takes his army men. And so he gets really angry. So he's called Red. And so he goes through these different places on this little imaginary journey and comes up to eat a different animal. And he teaches them to have courage, to take a deep breath, like when you get angry, and different things to learn how to choose love versus choosing anger, I guess.
I'm my non arts related job right now is I'm a nanny, and so we watch. I have a 3-year-old and a 8-month-old, and so we watch a lot of Daniel Tiger, and a
Hmm.
lot of it is like like anger management. And there's so many times I'm watching the show with these kiddos and thinking adults really need to see this. like
Yes. Yeah. Well, maybe the 3-year-old of the show, like I said, I could send you the link to the show. Maybe they would like it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
that's awesome.
But yeah, I think there's so many lessons like that we teach to little kids that adults could really be using right now.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
So you mentioned making puppets. Do you have like a favorite um, thing to build in props, or like a favorite material or a favorite item that when you see on the list, you're like, oh yeah, I get to work with whatever?
I always make jokes in my interviews, hopefully to get brownie points, that I'm a Hufflepuff. um, and I'm really good at finding things. So, not that I don't like building, but I really like finding things and finding the perfect antique whatever, or finding the perfect. I think of Parade. I did a show called Parade. It's a musical for Merry-Go-Round Theater. They're now called the Rev Theater up in Auburn, New York. And we had to find 31 wooden chairs, and they all had to look different. So that was an event, but I found them all. So that was really like rewarding. And I love props for that because it's like a free way of antiquing and getting paid to antique and go to thrift shops. So I think one of my favorite things is honestly finding things and being able to show it to a director or designer and they go, oh my gosh, that's perfect, or even better what they had imagined. So I think that's actually one of my favorite things. I've been lucky in my career that I have been a prop master more than I've only been an assistant on tour. So this past year was the first time I'd ever been a prop assistant. So with being a prop master, I don't get to build as often, but I have to find props. So maybe that's why I enjoy it a little more, is because it's something that I have to do. Whereas when I have assistants, they get to build, they, get to do some of that stuff because I have to go to production meetings or shopping or whatever it is.
So I didn't know that there were different props jobs. Explain that more.
Okay. So in the past, I've been like, so there's the prop master. So that's, head honcho who goes to the meetings, organizes all the paperwork and the budget and things like that. And then there can be a props assistant or like assistant prop manager. So that's a person that would, maybe that person is a student and they're wanting to be a prop master. So like I have let assistants before, like kind of be control over a show. That way they kind of get more experience with it, or handle one budget for one show. So they can also come to meetings and things like that, or it's a person to kind of be the head of the shop when like the prop master's not around. So that's a position. And then there are prop interns, which are, most likely young college kids that are just starting out, and they get to, they need to learn all the techniques and painting and finding things. And so they kind of do kind of the grunt work of the shop. And then in other shops that I have applied to work in, there is a prop shopper. So depending on how big the company is, for example, Glimmerglass up in Opera House up in New York, my friend worked for, and they had a specific person who just did the prop shopping. So that was a position. A lot of times too, there can be a prop artisan and a prop carpenter. So the artisan is more for like delicate kind of work, painting, upholstery, things that are a little bit more refined. And then the prop carpenter is someone who would build furniture or, have to fix like old props that are a little bit bigger and require more carpentry or possible welding experience. So they kind of go hand in hand because like, someone could build a couch and then the prop carpenter could build a couch and the prop artisan could then upholster it and make it look pretty. So they all kind of work hand in hand together. So I think that's about kind of rounded out of the positions. On tour, we had a production props person. So it was the company who bought the package and had all the props, and they would fix stuff and give us rehearsal props and things like that. And then us on tour would, of course, have to keep up the props and run the show on tour. So there's different, depending on which kind of theater you're doing, there's also can be different prop jobs.
The props world is much bigger than I thought it was. That's cool.
Yes. Another fun phrase that I've heard is on Broadway, props is tops. Because if you have one chair in a show, no other props, just the one chair, you have to hire a props person to move that chair. So I heard stories of the prop person like pulling out like a blow up mattress and like putting like a workout bar in the back because they, had to move the chair once, but they had to be there the whole time because it's a prop.
That's funny. What tour were you on?
So I was on the Donna Summer musical tour. I got on that in August of 2019. I was the prop assistant. So that was my very first tour. I got the job by working at a roadhouse. So it was, where tours come through in most towns. It's called the Walton Art Center, the one here in Arkansas. And I had met a stage manager a year before while I was working another show. And I saw like on Facebook that she was coming to Fayetteville, and I, said hello. So I worked the show. I saw her and I just, said hello again. And then she came to me. This is my favorite part of the story. I was folding Jean Valjean socks because we were doing Les Mis. And so I was sitting there folding socks because I did laundry for the show. She was like, hey, my friend needs an assistant. Can I send him your resume? And I was like, sure. Yes, please do that. And lo and behold, I ended up, I was actually up for Blue Man Group as well as Summer. That's what they told me, like the shows that they were considering me for. And then I got Summer. It was the first national tour. So it was really interesting having to learn and take the pieces from all of the Broadway production because we were the second one. So we had props from the original Broadway production. We had the original choreographer. Our assistant choreographer was a actress in the original Broadway production. Same director. So it was interesting, going from that production and the director and the designer basically, doing it all over again, but having to adjust for tour.
So what would like a typical day on tour look like for you?
Well, maybe I'll do a week because I guess each day was a little different. So on a Monday, you would fly into the new city. You land about 3 o'clock, check into your hotel or Airbnb, have dinner, and then go to bed because at 6 a.m. on Tuesday, you would get up and be at the theater. So, as props, we are also in charge of getting all of the costume gondolas where they needed to go, as well as audio. So we wouldn't actually get props until later in the day because they are last on the truck to come off. So we would usually get a scope of the place. My boss has been long time touring, and so he knew a lot of the facilities, which was really helpful. So I would usually go for a tour and just see the spaces that we could hide boxes because we had a lot of stuff. And things like that. So we would start to unload everything, and then we would get costumes where they needed to go. The costume team didn't usually come in till about 10 o'clock. So we would try and get everything ready to go for them by then. At every place, you have what are called locals. So we would have about 5 to 6 locals helping us so that we would direct those people to move the boxes, like to the costume room or sometimes dressing rooms to get the costumes steamed. And then we would also move all the audio boxes where they needed to go. And then we were in charge of setting up the band. So I would set up, that was part of my job. So I would set up all the keyboards, the outline of the drum kit, and we'd get all the music stands ready for them. And then audio would come in and plug everything in. We were just in charge of like getting it set up and getting the room kind of ready for them and spaced out properly. Our conductor was videotaped and streamed to the stage manager. So we had to make sure that there was a backdrop if the wall was white so that our stage manager could see our conductor and things like that. So that's kind of how the morning would go. And then once we would finally get props out, we would have to put them all where they needed to go, unload everything. We had a piano to put together. We had a couple of other props, like big props we had to put together and put places. And then we'd have a show at 7:30 that night. So we'd unload everything. And then so Tuesday, I guess I'll describe a full week. So a full week would be we would have rehearsal from 12 to about 5, and then another show. Or that was Wednesday. Thursday were a lot of times 2 show days. So we'd have a show at 2 o'clock and a show at 7:30. Fridays was a 1 show day. So we would, again, sometimes we'd have rehearsal. So we'd have to be there from noon to 5 and then come back for pre-show and do another show. And then Saturdays were 2 show days. And then Sundays were hit and miss if they were 2 show days. Sometimes they were just a matinee. Sometimes they were both. But whatever it was, after, usually it was 2 shows. So we'd bring the show down about 10 o'clock and then we'd load everything back up into the trucks. So props had to get into the truck first this time. And then we had to help make sure costumes and everything else got back and loaded. We usually got done about midnight, 1 o'clock, depending, and then go get on a plane the next day and do it all over again.
Was there any aspect of touring that was unexpected or different from what you had kind of thought it would be?
Yes and no. I had done a lot of road shows as a local. So I had a lot of things that I did expect. I guess learning the rules of the union was interesting for me and having to go to different locals. And some of them were like a little bit more lax. Some of them were a little bit stronger. So learning all of the local rules was different because my house wasn't union, so we did follow them, but just out of like a consistency respect thing. So it was interesting to have them be forced this time and be like very strict. In some houses, like Chicago is local too, so they're very strict, they're very by the book. So that was a lot different, having to learn all of that. I guess I'm used to having a larger voice because I was a prop master, and had more say, and I would be in some of those meetings, whereas this, we weren't. The production prop person would take care of all of those things, and we would just get the notes from them. But at the same time, when things would like break or we would need help on them, it would be up to us to fix them. So it was a very push pull, and I wasn't used to not being, as I guess, like in some of those bigger meetings and decisions, even when it directly affected us. So that was something I had to kind of learn and adapt to. It is very fast paced. You don't have time to like get upset about things or like be fussy about certain things. So you kind of have to like pick and choose if something's extra important, or whatever it is, because it is very fast paced and you're under a time limit, especially on that first load in day. I mean, like I said, it was my first time being an assistant, so that was interesting. It was nice to like, let go of the reins and be able to sit in the passenger seat, but also learning my place as that person. Another thing that was interesting on tour was that the whole show was props. We barely had any set. So carpentry didn't have to do as much work as I've seen them do on other shows. So there was a lot of weight on us. And so that was interesting because, I mean, the show was just a complete, like, we had Marley down, and then it was just a prop comes on stage and we're in Germany. Another prop comes on stage and we're in, Donna's kitchen. So it was very like the scenery was very based on us. So it was very fast paced, and I'm used to doing things a certain way, and how we do it in some regional theaters. It's different on tour. You don't have as much time to like explain things, and you kind of do a lot of stuff on the fly. And it was also my boss's first time being having an assistant, so we were kind of an interesting pair, kind of learning from each other those roles.
Mm-hmm. Did you learn anything about taking care of yourself, like self care, in such a fast paced environment?
I think I was still trying. Yes, I think I was still trying to discover what that all was. It's like I had my prop, or not my prop. I had my master carpenter. I asked him what he did on his day off, and he was like, "I napped all day." And just because it's a gorgeous, beautiful day in LA doesn't mean you necessarily have to go outside. So that was like a good moment of like, it's okay to take time to like rest for yourself on our time off to kind of recuperate. I definitely learned on those like, Monday nights to go to sleep, to like prepare myself for the next day. I would go to a lot of art museums on my time off and things like that. So I think I took time for myself in that way, and that kind of rejuvenated, all the social time that we were kind of forced into. But I was still kind of discovering ways to keep that up and to kind of create a system for myself so that I didn't get burned out, and I can enjoy, all of it for what it is. That was something I was still definitely discovering. And even my boss, who had been touring for, 15 plus years, said that he still hasn't gotten it all figured out. So it is definitely a process and a journey.
Mm-hmm. And everyone is so different too. Like what is rejuvenating for some people isn't for others. And as you age, like I think your needs are different. And so, yeah, kind of figuring that out as you get older too. But yeah, I think self care is interesting because it's never, I don't know if I've ever talked to someone who has it down, you know?
Right. Yeah, that's for sure. I think one thing about self-care on tour is making things easy for yourself so you're not extra stressed because you have to move. So like I wouldn't fully unpack my suitcase so I didn't have to repack it. Or sometimes I would completely empty my suitcase and repack it so it made me feel like things were clean and refreshed. Making things easier on yourself and having like those travel gear kind of type things helps with tour a lot. And I was still discovering, like I said, what those things were. And like what to keep in your backpack, what to keep. We had a safety box that we could leave our hard hats and our steel toed shoes in, so like what to put in certain places to make it easier for yourself. I think that's a big thing on for self care of tour, is just making the moving and traveling easier. so that you don't have to stress about forgetting something, or yeah, I guess you don't have to stress about like forgetting something, and it's easier for the next time around too. I think that's what it is. So that like the next time you do it, the next city you go to, it's faster, it's quicker, or it's easier to explain.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Any like funny stories of happenings on tour, or I don't know, any good stories? If not, that's okay.
I guess I feel like I had to block some of it out because it made me so sad to lose it all. So I'm trying
Mm-hmm.
to think. The first thing that comes to mind is all the things that kept breaking. I guess this is kind of funny. So we have a piano, and there was a piano trick. So there's a fight. So Donna Summer Stalker comes at her, and there's a fight scene, and she lifts the piano lid. You probably know what style of piano that is, grand piano. And, she pulls the lid down, and it's supposed to slam his hand into it. So we have the stick, to hold the piano lid up. So the trick, the actress is supposed to lift it high enough to let the stick fall, and then we have foam and a bunch of stuff to protect the actor's hand. But 4 times the stick did not fall fast enough, and the piano stick went right through the lid.
Oh.
I think it happened 4 times, and with 2 different Donnas as well. So it wasn't just like one actress. So that was a little crazy. We have a limo in the show, and once we forgot the wheel. And it like I felt so guilty because it's a prop, but I mean everybody walked by it and nobody said anything until it was too late. I apologized to my actress, and I was like, I'm so sorry, and she just like mimed a wheel, like she just went with it. So I guess that was kind of comical. I had to slide a suitcase across stage every night 4 times. So once in like the beginning of the show, and Donna's going off to Germany, and 3 times at the end of the show when all of Donna's daughters are going off to college, or it's like a symbolization of that. So I would have to slide the suitcase like off on stage, and it did fall quite a few times. And everybody would make jokes like suitcase 1, Sarah 0. I do want to put professional suitcase slider on my resume though now, because I had to do it, I mean, over 500 times for how many shows we did. So I am experienced in that.
You need to create a video of suitcase sliding technique.
Yes, you have to put weight in the bottom. You have to like kneel. I would like squat. I'd get all ready for it, and everybody would be looking in the wings, like cheering me on, or going like, "Oh, if it fell one night." So it was entertaining.
I had to do this is kind of similar. I had to do a show once where what was for Spam a lot, and I had to they needed someone to throw a broom on stage. And so they looked at me and they're like, "Can you do this?" And I said, "No, I cannot." But the director hands me the broom anyway. And this is like the rehearsal right before we open. And so he just gives it to me and walks away, and we go on. And I'm like, "Wait, like can I like practice this?" I mean, we open tonight, but it was terrifying. And yeah, people in the pit would just like, they knew it was coming up, so they just sit there and watch me, and I would miss like frequently because I hadn't practiced, and I'm a musician. I can't throw things.
Aw.
but but yeah, there's similar where I was like, I need to put this on my resume. I can also throw things on stage if need be because I figured out how to do it.
Well, that makes me think of I did Cinderella, and I had to hold a mat for a tumbler to fall onto, and it was the fox when the carriage is all falling apart and all the magic's going away. And so I had to hold this mat for this acrobat actor to fall onto, and then I had to throw the like prop fox that was like a stuffed animal on beat so that it landed, because music, of course, where it's like da 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 boom, like
Mhm.
so I had to throw it so it landed exactly on that note every night. And I couldn't see because I had to throw it behind a set piece, but the audience would laugh. And so I was like, okay, I think it landed. So at least you could throw things on beat, at least, or like understand like the count it needed to, land with the music. So that's
Sure,
good.
sure. Oh, brother. How do you find is so like in music world, a lot of most jobs are like recommendation. Like sometimes you audition for things or apply for things, but most of it is like word of mouth, people recommending you. Is it similar in props world? Are you Or are you like physically applying for jobs, or is it more based on recommendation? How do you find work?
I think for my career, it's been a little bit of both. I worked at Cincinnati Shakespeare Company, and I applied to that as like a normal job, but a friend of mine from a previous company had sent me the link. And she was like, "Hey, you would be perfect for this." So that was like a friend had helped me get it, but I applied normally. When I worked for the Rev company that I went to, there's a website called Offstage Jobs, which is like a big, networking of all backstage jobs. And so I found them on that website. When I worked for Creed, which is where you and I met, I knew Rick, the production manager from a previous company that we had both worked for, Arkansas Shakespeare Theater. And so that's how I got connected with Creed, because he had reached out to me and wanted me to apply. I kind of told you about tour that was kind of a recommendation thing. So it's been very kind of a mix for me. A lot of times when I talk to a new production manager or someone who's in the hiring position, like we know someone, like we have a mutual friend somewhere. So that's the beauty of the theater world, is that it can be so small, and you can have friends of friends that you don't know of, but then you meet, and it's great because you have a connection to that person.
Yeah, I think one of the great things about the industry, and also kind of sometimes one of the frustrating things about the industry, is that there's no like one way to find work. And so it's kind of hard. I found it kind of hard, like when I first started just getting my foot in the door, because like should I be applying for things, like how do I get in? But then yeah, once you get in, it kind of gets rolling. But yeah,
Yes.
it can be hard.
Yes, absolutely. And like I've gone back to Arkansas Shakespeare Theater multiple times in different positions too. It is where my college was, so that's how I like started there. And I started actually as an assistant stage manager, and then I came back as props master later in life. Sometimes a lot of people will repeat places as well because you have a good time and it's a good company. And sometimes it's also easier because you don't have to like explain yourself to people all over again. They know who you are, they know your work. It's a little bit easier of, is this going to work out, or do you want to go with someone else? I think you definitely also learn. I think it's much worse with actors and auditioning, like the no's that we get as well. I just had a friend tell me how they've applied to a place like 10 times and like never heard anything from them. But sometimes it's just not meant to be. And I kind of believe that when that happens, that means there's a different theater waiting for you someplace else.
hmm So you've kind of touched on different parts of your background, but I'd love to hear kind of the whole, like where you're from, how you got into theater in the first place, schooling, and kind of yeah, just how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, I made notes because I was like waiting for this, and I was like, wait, I need to remember everything. Okay. So funny enough, I never took a theater class in high school. I was in forensics, which is public speaking. So I loved doing oratory, which is persuasive speech. That's kind of where I was in high school. I also did band. And so I didn't have as much time for the drama classes. However, I did participate in shows. And like every budding theater child, I wanted to be an actress, like we all do. And so I had picked UCA, so the University of Central Arkansas. In high school, I loved my oral communications teacher. I loved her, and she got her degree in communications. And so I was like, that's what I want my degree in. And so I went to UCA, but I also wanted a minor in theater at the time. And I went and I had to do an audition. And the second I finished the audition, the business manager was like, "What's your major again?" And I was like, "Communication." She was like, "You should change that to theater." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I changed it to theater, and I never looked back. So my minor is actually in speech technically, but I was worried I wouldn't get the scholarship if I didn't change it, but then ended up being the right decision for me. So the very first semester in college, I read the play. It was called Mr. Marmalade, and I recognized I wasn't any of the characters. Like they just didn't really fit with me, but I wanted to be a part of the show, and they didn't have a stage manager. And so I raised my hand, and our teacher like auditioned three of us, and I ended up getting the position. And so for the first like 2.5 years of college, I actually was a stage manager. And then with stage managing, I went on to become an assistant stage manager for Arkansas Shakespeare Theater. And when you do that, you touch props constantly. You have to organize them. You have to hand them off. You have to see if they break. If they break in the middle of the show, you're the one that has to fix it. So we were constantly around props. And I have always been really crafty. My family's really artistic. So I've always loved crafting and making things. So then, junior year of college, we went to London and we went to the Harry Potter studios. Clearly, I'm a fan. And we walked into the back room and there was this big cage of all of like the set pieces. We turned a corner and there was Dumbledore's office, complete, pristine. Every book was in place, every picture. It was beautiful. And then I went over to this wall and they had the wall of all the orbs that they use in the fifth movie of all the prophecies.
Mhm.
And like, there was a little museum like note thing to read. And it said how somebody made 500 of those and then they didn't use one. They ended up CGIing them all.
Oh
And it
gosh.
broke my heart. It
Oh
broke
my.
my heart to pieces. And I was like, I felt so bad for those people. It broke my heart for those people and their gorgeous, beautiful, hard work, and then nothing. And so that was kind of, I know it was a movie thing, but that kind of was my breaking point. And I was just like, I want to be one of those people. Like I want to help make this magic. And throughout my stage management career previous to this, I've had directors being like, I would push kind of the edge of wanting to have more creative say and pick colors and have more of a design aspect. I kind of describe stage management as having a lid, and I would just keep hitting the lid constantly with how just creative I felt like I was. Because with stage management, I mean, there is creativity in it, but you can only color code things so many times. But I do believe my stage management background has led me to become a better prop person because I am organized and I know what happens in the rehearsal room as a stage manager, so I can better serve them as a prop master. So I came back from that trip from London, which was amazing, all about theater. And I told my professors how I felt. And they were like, well, if you want to go to grad school for this, you have to get a degree in scenic design because there are only like 5 or so programs for a grad program in props. You usually have to get a scenic design degree and then emphasize in props. So I said, okay. So they gave me 2 scenic designs my senior year. The first one was Woman in Black, which was a completely student run production. It was absolutely fabulous. The last one was Lucky Stiff. Throughout that process, I realized that I don't like drafting. Maybe, if I go back now, I might like it a little bit better, but I would just get really frustrated with all the really, really tiny details of like how thick molding is and how big are the steps and how thick is this. And with those gorgeous, beautiful, large set designs, you have to have like hundreds of drafts. And if something's wrong, it comes back to you a lot harder. The frustration of all of that, I just realized wasn't for me. I like scenic design still, but there's just that aspect of it is just not for me. And I kind of learned to describe, the thing that you like to do in life is that you don't mind the grunt work. And the
Mm.
grunt work of scenic design to me is drafting. Whereas, like, for you, I feel to me, the grunt work of music is practicing and
Mhm.
listening to yourself in a room listening to yourself in a room.
Mhm.
Um, so that's kind of how I felt about it. So that's when I really kind of took off with props. So I went to SETC after that in college, which is the Southeastern Theater Conference. And you basically walk into this room and there's 50 tables of different summer stocks. So I interviewed with 5 and I got callback. Oh, no, sorry. I interviewed with 30. I interviewed with 30 companies. I got 5 callbacks. One of them was the Gateway Playhouse up in Long Island, and it was actually for an assistant stage management position, and I got it. So that was really exciting. It's funny because it was the very first person to call me back, and my teachers were like, hold on, like, don't pick the first one right away. Like, wait a minute. But ended up being more money, and I was excited to go to Long Island. So I went there and I assistant stage managed. That was a very interesting experience. They had a hemp house. Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay, so I thought they only existed in our textbooks, but a hemp house is literally the old theater houses that are sandbags and rope for the fly system.
Oh.
Yeah.
Huh.
Which makes it a little bit more dangerous and
Yeah.
a little bit more, just a little bit more difficult because it's a much older building and a much older facility. So we did 5 musicals that summer. Again, being an assistant stage manager, I had to filter all the props, fix all the props. Billy Elliot was the worst tech of my whole life. The Gateway wasn't quite as uplifting as other theaters that I've worked for. So that was really hard. I also had stepped into the position after a person who had been there for like the past 5 years. So everybody was used to doing it her way. And then here comes a new person. And in all honesty, they shouldn't have hired me for that position. I didn't have enough experience. They needed to hire a equity ASM for that job, but they didn't want to pay union money. So that's why they picked someone who's not. I definitely admit that I struggled during a lot of parts of that because I was just really young and trying to find my place. And that was a struggle for me. I'm better now for it, absolutely. But I do wish I would have got a little bit more help than people yelling. But Billy Elliot, I mean, the preset for props took me an hour and a half with help. So there was just so much. And throughout my Gateway experience, I was really close with the props team. I loved my prop master. The prop assistant and I are still really good friends. And so during October, Gateway does what's called the Haunt. So it's a haunted house. It is the best thing about that place. It's amazing. And so stage managers, we didn't have anything to do while they were building it. So we had to go help the props team. So I got to put blood on everything and make corpses and melt down trash cans to make it look like guts and stuff. So that was just so fun and so exciting. And so that was just one of those another like moments in my life that I was like, I want to do this all day. So after Gateway, I came back to Arkansas for a little while. And then I ended up getting a job with Arkansas Shakespeare Theater as the prop master. So that was super exciting. I was actually up on a catwalk and I got the phone call from the assistant artistic director that they needed someone. And so I was really thankful to get my very first prop job and kind of open that door in the professional world for myself. So that was really great. We did 4 shows that summer, one of them being outdoors. So hot glue melts in Arkansas heat, if you didn't know. So there was a lot, and I got to work with one of my old professors. And so I got to learn and meet him, on a new ground. And we called him Greg instead of Dr. Blakey. And he taught me a lot. There's also a lot with, like, we had a gun because we were doing West Side Story. And so I was helpful to have his help navigating how to use like a live firearm on stage. And I had to call our local police every single time we did a fire shot to warn them to be like, this is just a test. Everything's fine. After Arkansas Shakes, I came back home to Northwest Arkansas for a little while. And that's when I got the message from the friend about Cincinnati Shakespeare Theater. And Cincinnati Shakespeare Theater's job was assistant prop master and prop master as one. So again, it was like a beautiful position for me because it was the two things that I liked to do. So I went to Cincinnati in August of, I think it was 2016, and we were finishing up the canon. So that was really awesome as an experience. So the canon is like every single Shakespeare play written. Or no, sorry, we were finishing the history canon. We did all of the history plays in order of how the story actually goes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So it was through years, of course, but I was there for the final year that we finished the history canon. Our videographer was absolutely brilliant and had this amazing video of like all the old actors and the characters they played. And it was like, the intro to a movie of like the past story and then where we had hit now with the live action. That was great. That was a really fun experience. It was, again, a bit of a struggle having 2 positions because I would have to be in rehearsal all day as the ASM and then go prop at night and then do it all over again the next day. So it was a bit of a struggle because I had to balance both of them, and having a stage manager as a boss pretty much, and then a scenic designer I had to answer to as the prop master, and then the production manager, of course, oversighting all of that. I think that's one I kind of wish I could go back and redo, to be honest, for what I know now. But I did learn a lot. I got to make a lot of severed heads that were actual casts of the actors' faces because they had died in the first show and we had done the next show. So that was a lot of fun getting to learn how to do that. The community in Cincinnati is wonderful. And so that was great to connect with other theaters and go rent props from them and get to see the Cincinnati Playhouse. Their prop house is an old roller rink. So it is like walking into heaven for me because like left and right, there's lamps, there's blankets, there's, boxes of dental tools, there's a whole rack of couches. I walk in there and it's Christmas. So that was a really great and fun experience working with CSC. They ended up splitting my position in November, so I became just prop master, and they hired a assistant stage manager by themselves. So that was great because I was able to focus a little bit more on props, and I had more time to handle everything and to just put out better product because I had more time and I wasn't juggling two positions at once. So I didn't get hired for the next year for them. So they had moved buildings. So I was there for the last season in their old building, and then they had built a brand new $17 million building, and they had changed my position and they decided to go with someone else. So then I applied to Merry-Go-Round. Now it's called the Rev Theater. And I went up to upstate New York. That was a fantastic company to work for. They were organized very well. My production manager was absolutely phenomenal. He was really young, but he just had a really good knack for everything and talking to people and navigating personalities. Like I said, we got to do Parade. We got to do Ghost the musical, which I also like to call Desks the musical. I had an assistant there and then an intern. So it was nice to have a team. And like I said, we had to do a lot of antiquing, a lot of running around to find things. I went to the hospital and got a slightly broken hospital bed just to return it. But that was really great. And being up in the Finger Lakes was really lovely. It's a beautiful area, but the shows were always really wonderful. We did the Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, which was a ginormous show. So the show has this scene where the dancers have a mannequin or like a puppet dancer on each hip. I don't know why. I think it was back in whenever it was written to try and make it look like there was more actresses on stage. So we had to build these mannequins that fit on either side of an actress, and the legs had to bend when the actress bent, and it had to kind of move with them. And so we got mannequins and stuck them on poles and got like back posture straps to like strap it to the actresses. And we had to build 12 of these. So we spent a whole lot of time building all of these, checking in with the director, making sure each step of the way was something that they had wanted. I had to collaborate with the costume team because they had to make costumes for the mannequins. They helped us come up with how to kind of make the limbs a little bit more movable. And then I had to go to my cousin's wedding the first day of tech, and I get an email and it's a rehearsal report. And the first line says, "The dolls have been cut."
No.
So that was probably the most devastating moment in my career as far as like losing a prop, because we had spent so much time on these things, so much money, so much effort in making them what they needed to be. And then I wasn't even there for them to cut them. Looking back, it was probably a good thing because I was distraught. It was so funny to me too, because in the very beginning, I asked my production manager, like, "Are we really going to make these?" And he was like, no, we're not doing this. And then I talked to the director and he was like, "Oh no, I want them." So my portfolio profile picture is like us lining up all the doll body parts because it's entertaining. So that's definitely one big thing that happens as props, is that you can spend all this time and money and effort and, energy into these things. And then the director can be like, "Nope." And then of course our poor costume team had to make costumes that fit a human, because they had adapted that scene. Plus we literally helped decorate a house. So that was a very big to do. But all in all, Merry-Go-Round, like I said, was a lovely company to work for. I really enjoyed all the work that I got to do. And I feel like I got to branch out a little bit and try new things. And it was nice to finally have assistants again, because previous to that CSC, I was by myself. And so it was nice to like have help and have a team. That's something also really interesting to learn in props, is that one of the things that they ask for is like, can you work by yourself, or can you work with a team? Can you manage a team? So depending on how big the theater is, that's a big question. And then after Merry-Go-Round, I came back home again for a little while. And then 2018, I think that was when we both went to Creed.
Mm-hmm.
So that was beautiful, wonderful, amazing experience. I mean, you know this. I have never felt more loved or more cared for in a community of theater than Creed. We can't explain it, but the town, the people, the shows were just so amazing and wonderful. Creed was a great prop experience because we had Mark, which was, we were co-prop masters, which was kind of weird, but it was finally nice to work with someone who honestly, he's very talented. He has a lot more talent, like more knowledge of things than I do. He has his degree in a graduate degree in scenic design. So of course he's just, had more opportunity to do things. But it was really lovely to work with him and get to learn from him. And, I'm not the best welder. I'm not even a good welder. So he could, do some of those things or help me figure out how to like work around some of those moments. And he would be, running a show, and then I would be running the next show. And so we could like, he could go to a meeting and I could stay in the shop and vice versa. So it was really amazing to get to work with him and learn from him, and have somebody who wasn't necessarily like underneath me to rely on and, talk about things with. So that was really great. And like I said, Creed was just amazing. We got to do Wizard of Oz, which you got to work with the Henson puppet. So that was amazing. You probably remember the puppet legs would fall off. So I got the experience of sewing all of those on, and Toto would break. But I got the experience of fixing Toto. So that was great for, the beginnings of my puppet part of my career. It was the very opposite of merry-go-round, where we could drive to all these, old antique shops and find stuff. You didn't have that option in Creed. We had to drive around to the people who had too many things in their yards and go knock on their door awkwardly and ask to borrow it.
I didn't know you guys did that.
Oh yeah, we did that for like a wagon. I did that for the sink in Guadalupe in the guest room. I literally walked to this person's door and was like, "Can I borrow this sink?"
It's
Like,
funny.
so definitely a different way of using resources in Creed. But I would do it all again in a heartbeat. The theater was great. It was really cool to get to work in two spaces too. So we didn't have to just, work with the one space and keep like rolling it over. There was the two spaces. So that was wonderful. But yeah, I think I forever love Creed just because it was a wonderful summer, and we got to make some really beautiful art. I feel like I learned the most about like culturally with like Guadalupe in the guest room, because we got to work so closely with the director and the designer who was from Peru, and got to put some of these personal cultural touches into it. That was wonderful. And then after Creed, I actually took a break from theater and I moved to the Grand Canyon. So I lived in the Grand Canyon for 6 months, and I was just a server. But I would hand someone their breakfast plate and I would look up and I could see the edge of the canyon.
Cool.
So, yeah, it was a lot like theater in the instance that they house you there. Housing was $18 a week, and they took it right out of your paycheck, so you didn't have to think about that. It was a cabin, so like you don't have a kitchen. I had an Instapot, and that's where I cooked everything. So it was great. My best friend lived there, with her 1-year-old at the time, so I got to spend time with her and my basically nephew. And we're in a beautiful place. We took trips to Horseshoe Canyon and Flagstaff and Vegas. So with it being so touristy, we made pretty good amount of money there. So that was, something different that I did, and I guess kind of took a break for a little while. And then I left there in March of February of 2019. And I came back here, and that's my second time working with Trike. So that's when I worked with the Trike Children's Theater here in Bentonville. And that was the first time I got to make puppets for the show I'm doing now, Choose Love. So it was kind of one of those moments where I left the canyon like just at the right time, because I got this job making puppets. And so that was crazy, because we had to watch a million videos and redo things and learn how to work with the felt and fleece and how to put eyeballs on and how to make certain things move. And is it a land turtle? Is it a sea turtle? Because those move differently. So that was a really great experience. And then I was kind of on a break. I worked at Home Depot as a survival job. And then I was actually planning on moving to Chicago. I had a bunch of plans set up. I was making connections. I was talking to people. I was going to move to Chicago in August of 2019. There was this wonderful woman who had a bunch of like vendors and theaters that she had connected with as a prop person. And I've heard in Chicago that like you do one good job once and you never have to ask for work again. The word of mouth is so fast that people call you. So that was really exciting for me. But curveball, I was working still part-time at the Walton Arts Center, doing the Broadway shows that came through. And that's when I met that woman, and I got the connection to get on my tour. And so in August of 2019, I jumped on tour. So we were in New York for 3 weeks to do rehearsal. And I guess that was really weird to everybody. I guess normally props don't come in until later in the process, but again, the show was just props. So we kind of had to be there because we had to move everything. And I guess this is a interesting story. So throughout the tour, so we left the tour for in August. In December, we went to San Francisco. San Francisco Theater, I think it was the Golden Gate, is so small. We cut a third of the props by volume from the tour. It was a little crazy, but that just goes to show how much we had, like me and my boss like had to be there to help them move so that rehearsal could run at all. I was on tour, and then of course in March, we were actually in Canada when the pandemic hit. So for that week before the 16th, every day it was like, is this our last day? Is this our last show? And I remember there's a scene where I had to put on a costume and become a piano mover, and I have to pull the piano back into the backstage, and a curtain would drop to cover us. So I get to look up at the audience every night. And I remember looking at them being like, is this the last time? Like, is this the last time I'm going to get to see this and feel this moment and feel this energy? So I think we performed our Saturday show, and then the Sunday shows were canceled. I remember talking to the prop local, and he was like, we need to shut everything down. He's like, I think we need to shut down right now. Everything needs to be shut down. And I didn't believe him, but that's because, we didn't know, and it was still kind of brewing. That was the first time someone had said something like that felt so drastic. But looking back, he was 100% correct. So it was interesting trying to like navigate getting back into the country, like let alone back to Arkansas. I had to go to O'Hare first, of course, and I've never been so excited to be at O'Hare Airport or land on American soil. And so I got home 3 days before they closed the border. So that was a little crazy. The one good thing that came from that is that we got to see Come From Away right before it closed as well. And it was the Canadian version and everything. And so that was so beautiful. And I remember bawling through the entire show because it's a gorgeous story, first. And second, it's about these random people helping these other people that got stranded. And I was so scared that kindness wouldn't translate to what was about to come. It's a virus. You don't want to be around people. Whereas this story, that it was a different situation. But I was really thankful that I got to see that before we left. And I got to go to I think it's the AGO, the Art Gallery of Ontario or Canada. Me and my coworker got to go the day they closed it down. So like we got word on the news it shut down after we had gotten home. So that was like snuck in there. But it was really kind of wild to be in Canada when all of this was happening, and Broadway started to shut down. And so we were the last, my show and Hamilton were the last American shows standing.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I think I might have heard of one in Oregon that hadn't shut down yet, but I never thought I would be in the same vein as Hamilton for anything. I was like, I never thought we'd be on the same level of something, but us and Hamilton were the only shows that hadn't shut down. And it was only because we were in Canada and not America at the time. And we had already gotten word that our next venue had shut down and the venue after that. And I think it was like maybe April when they finally sent us word that our tour had completely shut down. We weren't going to kick back up again anytime. We knew it was coming, but it was still really heartbreaking to hear. And like for me, I didn't get to finish my first tour. So like I'm very thankful that I got the 6 months that I did have, but I didn't get to see it through or how a tour ends. And we were right about to go to our Florida like spell too. So all of us were so excited about the beach, but we all went home instead. I don't know if I talked too long just then or did the long version, but
No, I love it. I love hearing people's stories.
okay, good. I was just like, I hope I didn't squirrel off too many times.
My philosophy is that podcasts were made for like just rambling, right? Like I don't think you can talk too much. It's a podcast. That's the point,
Okay,
So
good.
at least that's my view on it.
Good.
Yeah, you've done some cool stuff. What has kept you in the field when it's gotten difficult?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think of my most difficult. Well, the dolls. Those dolls were real rough. I mean, I guess what they say is true. The show must go on. I mean, when you're in the thick of it, in the middle of a season, you can't break off. You can't leave. I'm not that kind of person. I'm not gonna leave that even though I might be upset about something or, lost a big piece of work, the show must go on. So that's something I think in the middle of a season that's like kept me going is the audience isn't supposed to see any of this. They're not supposed to know. It's supposed to be sparkles and smiles and laughs and bright lights. And we got to make that experience happen for them no matter what it takes. And I mean, you know this. I chose love over money a long time ago when it came to theater. So, and they do say if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. So, I think with tour, when I would have struggle moments, I think I would remind myself to like not let them get the better of me. And, there's a way to work through it. There's a way that doesn't have to be that hard or that difficult. Being able to have tour, I guess, is nice because you have another show. You always have another show to make it better, to make it different, to make that not happen again. And the moments of perfection, or when something is like when I slid that suitcase, on point, on beat, like that was the moment, that was the moment that that you want. And so if you give up, you don't get that ever again. So I think reminding myself of the moments that are worth it, when the audience lights up for something, when they see something appear, everybody in the audience would start whispering for poor, when are they going to play Last Dance? When are they going to play Last Dance? Like they're always whispering. And then, of course, when she walks out the end and you hear the first note, the whole audience erupts. And that moment is beautiful. And everybody starts getting up and dancing and really enjoying themselves. And you can tell that some people really have, come into our world and escaped. And that's our goal, is to give them that 2-hour experience of something else. Or, for our crowd was a lot of older people because it was translating them back to disco. We were their time turner, so we had to transport them back so they could have a minute of the joy that they felt back then. So I think it's those good moments that like remind me to keep going and to push forward. And with children's theater, I guess it's a little easier in a sense because you got to do it for the kids. They need this experience. They need the joy and the discovery of theater and live theater and what it can do for you. And so that's always a good reminder.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had so many moments where you have to like fight to remind yourself
Mhm.
of the good that you've gotten out of the industry, and maybe not forget, but just, choose to leave behind the frustrating moments, or, the relationships that have not worked out well, or, but yeah, cuz it's hard. It's a hard industry, and it's a hard industry to navigate, I think. Yeah, there's so much good that comes out of it too.
Yeah, and when it comes to the shows too, like Parade, I didn't understand why we were doing Parade because it's a show about a Jewish man who runs a pencil factory, and a he employs younger girls, and one of them dies in the factory. And one of the lines in the show is that like, well, we can't blame the black man anymore, so we're going to blame the Jew, because this is in southern Georgia. And I didn't understand why we were doing the show because it was so serious and so different from the rest of the season. But then once we did it, I completely understood the message that we were trying to send. And the music was absolutely beautiful. And it was just a gorgeous, it was heartbreaking, but it was a gorgeous show. And when the crew wants to come back to a show besides opening night, that's when you know you have a good show, is when the technicians aren't sick of it, because half of them don't like theater anyways, they just like the work. uh, when they want to come back, that's when you know you have a good show. And I regret not going back to see Parade again because it was so well done and the message was just so strong. Sometimes the shows too can keep you going because it's like you have a message to remind people of, or a story that needs to be told. Or with like Wizard of Oz, you just have some fun to have. Like everybody enjoys a night, or everybody deserves and enjoys a good night out of just some good old fun and joy.
Yeah, that's a good point. My final question that I like to ask everyone is, what advice would you give to young people who are interested in pursuing a career in props?
I would say be an assistant as long as you can. If you're in college, do everything. Do absolutely everything you can. My college was really wonderful and so flexible. So, like for a show, I wanted to just use foam so I could practice learning foam, and they let me. Those props were not pretty, but I know more about foam now. So, I would literally do everything you can. And if you are under that educational cushion, absorb it, enjoy it, embrace it, make as many mistakes as you can in college, because the minute you step out into the more real world, you don't have as much time to do that or to redo things. So I would intern, assistant, practice as much as you possibly can, because that's one thing I wish I would have done. Like I said, I didn't become an assistant until now, basically. And I wish I would have had a little bit more time to like sit in the passenger seat and learn from someone else and learn from other people instead of having to kind of figure some stuff out on my own. I would, yeah, embrace all the time and all the projects that you're given, and try new things for fun. It doesn't necessarily have to be for a show, or if you have something for a show, think of 5 ways you can do it before picking one. Can you make it out of foam? Can you make it out of fabric? Can you make it out of this, so that you have more experience, because that'll just help you later in a show. I would also encourage young people to, the side hustle is real. As much as I hate to say it, it truly is. So if you have a second passion or something that you're interested in, don't lose it, because you never know when a pandemic will hit and you need something else to be interested in or have passion for that could possibly make you money. So I wouldn't, actors too, I wouldn't put it past anybody to don't lose some of that, second things that you're interested in, because theater is hard. I'm not one that likes to sugarcoat it personally. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying that like you have to want it and you have to work for it. And the community is growing, I feel like. And I think we'll see what happens with COVID, but I feel like before, the community is growing and there's more people. And so, in a sense, there's more competition. So you have to get ready for that and be able to. A prop master can be a jack of all trades. So you need to know a lot about a lot of things: sewing, crafting, carpentry, welding. Even if you can't do it, you need to understand the basic principles of it. And it's a lot. So, like I said, just doing as much as you possibly can while you can afford it, because assistant positions are paid a little less, because it'll just help you when you want to get those higher positions and keep growing on yourself.
The music for the Backstage Creative was improvised and performed by Ian Leroy, and the logo was designed by Carly Wagner.